Yeah, these meetings don't last, they go pretty quick.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna complain.
I think the longest one we had was like 30 minutes.
I don't have Facebook on my phone.
4 years ago.
No, your fingers, woodworking.
I think we're live right now.
My new
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have all 10 minutes.
All right.
There you go. We're ready, okay, let's get it. I'd like to call this meeting to order, for Monday, March 7th, the Kingsburg Public Safety Committee meeting. First on the agenda is public comment. Is there anybody, that would like to make public comment? Nobody here, so I don't think there is. And, Abby, do we still have the phone? We don't do the phone anymore, right? We're done. Okay. So, seeing nobody for public comment, next on the agenda is approve our minutes for the November 15th meeting. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next, we have a body camera update by our police chief, Neil Gadian. Thanks for coming, chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, appreciate it. Appreciate, the Public Safety Committee, your time and attention. So, Councilmember Palomar, when you asked me to do this, I don't have a formal presentation. I'm just gonna talk to you about, the direction I'm heading. So, I haven't, I don't have any handouts or anything like that. So, for the last couple, or 2 or 3 years, really, the city manager and I have been discussing the need for body cameras and probably dash cameras as well, right? And I think everybody can probably understand, why that is, but just for public record, I want to make sure that our police department is as transparent as possible. And, that's obviously very important, and there's a lot of, sensitivity to that these days. Great, no problem. I have no problem with sunshine. Equally as important to me is the ability to prosecute when we have a case, we make an arrest, we conduct an investigation. So those body cameras are as important because with the ability to have it these days, the need of the jury to see things, not just hear things, but to see things, becoming more and more important. The prosecutors, in my day, it was officer, get up and testify, and you did, and you pretty much people took you at your word. Today, it's show me, and the prosecutors need that because they were raised in the digital age. They need to see something like that. So, 2 equally important reasons why we're moving towards body cameras: again, transparency and the ability for the public to be confident in its police, and for the ability of the police to have modern-day technology for prosecution. So, that premise going forward, the city manager and I have been discussing this for the last couple of years, and we came upon a timeline where we would implement something next fiscal year. So this year I've been doing some research. I actually started last year to do some research. I got one bid from a vendor. I've talked to a couple of the local police departments. I have their information. I was able to talk to some other vendors recently at a California Police Chiefs Conference. So that's where I'm at. I'm looking at that. Generally speaking, we're probably looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of about $300,000 over a 5-year period. There's 2 types of ways to do this. One way would be to just buy it and handle it ourselves, but that requires a lot of IT support internally, which we don't have, or we use the vendor for that type of IT support, which they do have, and that's their preference as well, that they provide all of this. The initial purchase is a little bit more because you're buying the equipment, but the equipment is kind of almost incidental to the entire project because it's really about paying for storage in their cloud. or on their servers, but usually some sort of cloud-based, way to store it. And so that's what we're researching currently. That's, you know, we're trying to find the best fit for us and how to do that. One of the things that I want to, really pay attention to, in addition to the body cameras, are the dash cams, because that's gonna capture some things that the body camera won't necessarily capture. So I want to make sure that, you know, we have the ability to do that as well, but again, there's a cost factor associated with that. Ongoing with that is, under the California Public Records Act, anybody can come in at any time and just ask for, give me the last 24 hours of body cam footage, for however many officers you have out in the field. So, you know, the last two days worth of body cam footage for, you know, the 5-6 cops that were on duty. And we have to provide that. That is a huge amount of staff time to do that. We need the infrastructure in place to do that, which is, again, why we're looking at probably something more cloud-based than doing it ourselves. So we can download that, provide it to them on some piece of media, and give that to them, because it's their right to have it. So a lot of facets to this, and it's just requires a lot of due diligence and research. So that's pretty much a good overview. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Has there been any standard established in California as to length of storage in the cloud?
Generally, we're going with about 180 days. So, and that's what I'm looking at, 180 days. Legally, I believe, don't hold me to this, I think it's 3 months, might be 4 months, but we're looking at 180 days.
Are most departments using the same vendor? Is there like the Cadillac of vendors that we're looking at? That's kind of the...
Yeah, there's one big dog on the block, and they actually started out with their tasers. You know, it was Taser, now it's Axon Mobile, and they're actually branching out into other things. They're getting into computer-aided dispatch and, you know, things like that. But they are probably the big dog across the country for body-worn cameras. And, you know, so one of the advantages to working with them is they also, you know, that's where we get our tasers. They also kind of wash that into the deal. So, you know, we get a reduced rate on kind of everything across the board, taser replacement, cartridge replacement, body-worn cameras, dash cams, storage, et cetera. So, I mean, it's something to consider, but it's not the only thing to consider. There's other good vendors out there that are smaller, but still reputable, provide good customer service, and that's really the key factor I look for in almost anything of this nature, is what type of customer service am I going to get? The equipment is pretty much good across the board, but what kind of support and customer service can I get?
So I'm assuming that includes, they handle firmware updates, software updates when you're utilizing the cloud, so it's all taken care of by them.
Correct. We're just not set up for that.
Right.
Will there be any impact for your officers as far as downloading at the end of their shift, or?
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways to do that. So again, learning about this as we go. There are a couple of different ways to download. They can actually come in and plug into a piece of equipment and download that, or there's also a Wi-Fi way to download as well, and they can do that again, depending on how we're set up. If we're set up this way, if we choose this method at various Wi-Fi spots around the city, when they're in contact with one of those Wi-Fi spots, they can download, let's say, the last 2 hours or 3 hours, you know, kind of get that off their plate and then move on with the rest of their shift.
Great. Finalize the policies on the use of, they can be turned off, things like that. Are you still developing department policies on the usage?
Not too much. and I'll tell you why. We subscribe to Lexipol, which is pretty much nationwide now, and they do our policy. They actually started here in California doing policy for law enforcement. They've since branched into fire. They have a number of states that they work with. I would say a good 90+% of the police agencies in California subscribe to them. And, you know, they have an army of attorneys who vet all of this stuff, so I don't really have to invent that. The only thing I have to, which is great, right? The only thing I have to invent is anything germane, particularly to the Kingsburg Police Department. You know, how does it work? You know, like if I set certain times or, you know, shift preferences or something like that. So it's, my policy aspect of that is very minor. They have the template. I'm just gonna follow the template, take the guided tour, and, you know, stay within safe parameters so that, you know, our legal liability is greatly reduced.
How do the officers feel about moving towards the cameras? Pretty much supportive of it?
Oh, yeah. They're younger folks, they're into tech, and they're not, you know, they're not making you and me anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Back in the day, this was my mouse, this was my tablet.
Yes, we do remember that.
It doesn't work that way in today's society with today's employees, so they're in favor of it. And, you know, to tell you the truth, across the board, you talk to a sheriff or police chief, or any law enforcement agency head, and they're going to tell you that that body camera footage gets their officers out of more trouble than it gets them into. You know, you're gonna get some foul languages and things like that, but they know that they're recording. They know that everything they say and do is now a matter of public record. And what has been favorable is that when people come and complain, your officer did this, your officer did that, press play, not so much. So it's really reduced a lot of complaints against officers. Sustained complaints, and people still complain, but, you know, then once they're shown, that's not how it actually happened, and it goes away.
Yeah, any, in your studies, I don't know how many complaints you get now, obviously that there would be a reduction. It would reduce complaints 50% over time.
I got 3 citizen complaints last year, so it's kind of.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, it is. I average 3 or 4 a year and have kind of consistently over the last 7 years, and I've been the police chief. I don't imagine that going up, you know. The best way to get out of a complaint is not to get into it, and so we spend a lot of time with our officers providing training for, you know, how to deal with people respectfully, how to have some good verbal skills. So might that shave off 1 or 2? Probably. But, you know, with such a flat line of numbers, it's hard to get a pulse out of that anyway.
Because you're keeping such a low rate.
Thank you, I appreciate that. It's really the caliber of people that we have here.
Any other questions for Chief? I just have a question. Chief, how soon are you wanting to implement this? You know, I mean, I know you said you've been working on it for a couple of years. How soon would you like, you know, you said get the cameras and.
Well, yeah, then this may affect your decision-making, obviously, so, because you have funds for this fiscal year. I'm not going to be able to fund this and really get started on it, implementing operationally, you know, until July 1, so it would be the next fiscal year. So considerations for funds this year, you know, again, pleasure of the committee, but I wouldn't actually use them unless we encumbered them for next year's budget, you know, something like that, because I need a fresh start date of July 1 with all the other moving parts that I have involved with this as well. You have other things out there, I'm not gonna pick your pocket just yet.
We might, but, you know, we wanted to talk with you about this so that we could, you know, get a better feel for it, but we might be able to, you know, fund somewhere else until next year.
And I greatly appreciate the consideration, I truly do. But, to be direct, if you have something that is worthy of funding, this fiscal year, because we're 4 months away from the end of it, you may want to strongly consider that, because again, my plan was to research during this current fiscal year and then go operational next fiscal year, and I can't move any faster than that.
I guess, you know, we can decide with either this year to fund, you know, or then maybe wait for next year to see what we use our funds for, you know, so. I know we do want to help you with this project for sure.
Well, and I greatly appreciate it, and certainly the funding that you've provided in the past has been extremely helpful for our other camera projects that we have going on, and, you know, we solve crimes out of that.
Yeah.
We solve crimes, with our city cameras, so that's been extremely valuable to us, and we certainly appreciate the ability that we have because of the funding that we've received.
Any more questions for Chief? All right, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, appreciate your time.
Okay, so we can discuss use of funds. I know last meeting we talked about funding this project, and we wanted to, you know, get some numbers, right, Alan, and have them now for like $300,000 of money.
I think when you look at it, over a 5-year period, and, per day, loss is pretty close. But, so one thing, you know, I'm actually thinking about coming over here, which is related to cameras, or actually to the body cameras. I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but, as we all know, gas prices are going up and are projected to stay up. The increase in the use of bicycles. How is Kingsburg, set in terms of in bike lanes, bike safety, things like that for the citizens? I think we will see.
Probably. I know that I heard yesterday that Southern California, like $7 a gallon right now.
Right, and so the safety of the citizens as they're bicycling around.
Yeah,
This
well,
was something that came to mind because.
Yeah, we do have bike lanes.
And so, in terms of do we need more, are they sufficient, are they maintained? I'm just throwing these out
Yeah.
there as part of our overall discussion of use of funds. Is there something that can be done with that as well? That is, it's a reality now. I don't know if, possibly, Mr. City Manager, you might have information on it, or Chief, you have much knowledge on the bicycle lanes and, things like that, and the safety aspect so far, how we're doing.
I don't have any information on that. I don't know that, I can point to anyone, you know, collision that, has been caused because there wasn't a bike lane, but, you know, I would tell you just from general knowledge, I think they're, a good safety aspect. It's an enhancement.
Just in terms of existing bike lanes, I mean, we have a pretty regular, like a restriping schedule that Public Works maintains, but, if there's a desire by this group to put funding towards that, then we could, basically, you know, we have certain sectors that we do every single year, so we could, bump those up in terms of when, you know, one might occur a year sooner. I'd have to check with the city engineer. I know we're adding, a multi-use path on Madsen. I don't know of any additional, bike lanes, but if that's something that the group is interested in us looking at, we have a master plan, that we designate where most of those lanes are going. A lot of them are based upon a new development, so when there's a new subdivision that occurs, then we ask them to, they have to widen the streets, so if you, on 18th Avenue, obviously with the new housing, you'll see that as they need to go north, and they'll widen those streets, and then they'll add bike lanes and things like that, if they're part of those master plans. That's usually how those get developed as the community grows. Have to look at the existing plan of current locations that may benefit from an added bike. If you guys are interested in it, I'd be happy to.
Sounds like there are some things in motion, so, back to the use of funds, bike lanes, things like that, bicycle safety maintenance. We'd see huge benefit out of that, on cameras. I think we have to keep our eye on many different, risks. I think the, body camera is a good project to get behind, a matter of. And Chief, is there a way for us to spend the money now before the end of the fiscal year? Is there something that you would see benefit out of?
No, there's really nothing that we can purchase to kind of prep ourselves for this. We have to select a vendor, then, the city has a purchasing policy, it's gonna be expensive. Like I said, probably my best guess at this point, and just from the one, quote that I did get, probably gonna be about $300,000. Divide that over 5 years, that's around 60. There's some front loading, so maybe 70 or 80 initially for, purchase of equipment. But a lot of that stuff is, well, not proprietary. There's, you can't just go out and purchase the equipment and then select a different vendor because they may not support that type of equipment. So I appreciate what you're saying, but there's really no ability for us to kind of get ahead on this.
And a related question, is there anything in our camera system that we have now that needs augmentation that you can see?
There are more of them. Yeah, I mean, we can always use more cameras, and every day the technology gets better. So sometimes, like we had a murder last year, and we were looking at camera footage on Sierra, and we have the vehicle, we just didn't have enough for a plate. I mean, it wasn't that in hand, it was behind, other factors going on. So, I mean, anytime we can, either enhance what we have or add to what we have, that's, certainly a plus for us.
Are there areas right now that you wish had surveillance capability?
Oh, yeah.
That you could identify for us?
Not right now, I do have a list. I do have a list, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
When it comes down to weighing the money, and it'd be up to the department whether to enhance or to add, where's the breaking point of the better way to go. That is certainly something that, need to fund.
Definitely. I think that's what we funded last year, was a bunch of cameras for the police department,
And then the bike path idea, what about expanding the walking path around town? Is there any talk of extending the walking path northbound of Stroud off of Madsen? Is there even enough space there on the ditch to continue that walking path?
Yeah, so there's obviously the path that's there on Madsen now, but this spring, so pretty soon here, we'll be extending it from Stroud all the way up to Camp.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So the intention is to eventually, if you carried it up to Madsen, on the very north, the most northbound, it's a D.R. Horton subdivision. There's a pretty wide path there, and that connects all the way over to the new subdivision through Solig, which Solig is now the road that continues all the way through to 18th. So when all those are built out, eventually you'll be able to, really walk the most northern part of the city, east and west between 18th and Madsen, and now those are going to connect south of Sierra, realign Madsen Road 16 there, the new subdivision down to 396 back, in front of Safargen Field and those new subdivisions as well. So we're trying to, as those areas grow, connect those spots. There's a couple other pedestrian projects, so I know we've been working pretty closely with the high school, taking longer because there's Caltrans, but we're gonna add 3, if not 4 of those rapid flashing beacons along Sierra. So, for our crosswalk, so Memorial Park has one. There's a couple there just south of the high school, 19th and 20th, and then, probably adding one to that crosswalk on Madsen and Sierra, so that I just was referencing. And then we're working with the elementary district to put one in front of, Roosevelt School as well. So a couple of those other ones those sorts of things interest the group. Those run about $25,000 to $30,000 a location, depending upon what they need for signage and Caltrans is involved or not.
We had a student clip today, kind of unrelated to stuff we're talking about. It was just more signage. I don't think it's going to help in that scenario, but regardless, it's always on our mind.
What about that one, Sean, at Roosevelt?
I heard that it was in the works.
I just found out
That's great.
last week, and I was gonna let you know about it today. I was gonna, yeah.
That's great, yeah.
Okay, so, any other discussion on the funds,
Well, I think it comes down to with, the fiscal year coming to an end, I think we
yeah, it's coming in about
sat
3
on the
months.
funds for a while, waiting to see what other projects came up. We've had a lot of good discussions, but I think it really comes down to, the best bang for the buck right now would probably be to be more to the, citywide camera system. My personal belief on that.
I said we had about 12 cameras a year, and it keeps going, because there's always, it's inevitable, a situation's gonna happen, and in that spot, we don't have a camera, so we're always adding more cameras, so,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I support that. I'm with that.
I support that also, can't go wrong with, cameras for the city. Okay. So do we wanna give all the 10,000 again for more cameras?
Okay, at this point, this far
Yeah,
along.
we've been holding
the
this money
budget
for,
year, let's go ahead and do it.
we were gonna do the body cams, but I agree, okay.
Look,
And,
make a motion that we spend all 10,000.
more city cameras.
Are you good with that, chief?
Yes. I was already thinking, okay, we can put a couple more here at parks, a couple other places that, just again, top of my head, so my initial blush, so yeah, thank you, that would be, a nice advantage and a nice plus for us.
We have a motion, I think second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was discussion, other business?
All kind of morphed together there,
Yeah.
which is fine.
The only thing I have, do we have an ordinance or, any bylaws on sidewalks, like, you know, cracked sidewalks, if they're raised by roots, you know, if we can discuss that next meeting or get some, on that, Alex, you know, just learn how that, you know, I know that, what's our liability, you know, what's the city's liability, and that's my question, I'm curious, you know.
So, yeah, it's kind of a number of variables, so it kind of depends upon how much the sidewalk is raised. And then, usually the big factor is when we know about it. So, usually if it gets reported, then we have a certain amount of time to correct that. So whether that's, shaving it down so it's not a trip hazard, or completely replacing the panel. We usually, if there's a tree, involved, and let's just say it's a private property tree, we try and partner with them. So, ask them to take out the tree, and then we'll replace the sidewalk, or there's usually, it just kind of depends situation to situation, but, if there are particular areas or, ones you have in mind, definitely can follow up with that. But I can get you the specific. We have some policies, because we're part of a risk management association, essentially. So, you know, cities have certain protections and exemptions, right? So, you know, someone is playing at a playground and fall off the monkey bars and break their arm, you know, you can't sue us unless there's some, you know, gross negligence on, you know, our failure to maintain the equipment or something like that. But it's kind of a similar type of immunity with sidewalks, as long as we're responsive when we're made aware of them.
Daniel has a list also right now in the works of sidewalks, like a priority list, the public works director.
I can tell you just from getting the work done, we have to try and put enough of those together in order to entice a contractor to want to take on a project, because, you know, one panel is a couple $100. Well, they're not necessarily going to want to pull off a larger job or something like that to just do that work. So we try and couple them together, get them all done at once, and then it becomes a little bit more attractive from a contractor standpoint, and they're all relatively busy right now, too.
Okay, any other business? Okay, then we will adjourn this meeting for March 7th until our next meeting is May 9th.